Alright. Back on the Praying Mantis. Walks on the blade of grass slowly while playing his flute. Or no, that's not the title of the show.
You know I'm gonna fuck this up anyway. Are you editing this at all?
He's gonna fuck this up, he says. No, I'm not editing it. This is Daniel Lynn, my special guest today. We're on the topic of psychedelics. Psychedelics, Daniel. What do you think about psychedelics?
I think I'd like to try them.
Yeah?
It's like an out-of-mind experience.
Yeah.
It's not regular life. It's
when you take psychedelics.
The thinking is different.
Yeah, it's totally different. Taking shrooms 5 or 6 times, and taking acid.
I'm jealous.
Taking acid once. But when you're taking psychedelics, the thing that's different from your everyday life and from, the everyday weed high is that it's just different because you're thinking on a more grand scale of things. You ponder the entire universe.
See, with
You
my
really feel like you're just one little piece of the universe instead of like this great being that we always think we are.
With my last experience being high, it just seemed like all of my senses were heightened.
Right.
Like, I guess thinking, vision, feeling, everything was just heightened.
Yeah.
I guess the first time I figured out that's why they call it being high.
Yeah.
Like, I feel it's hard.
How many times have you gotten high?
Like 7.
Nice. He knows the exact amount.
No, that's an estimate, Jack.
Oh, okay.
I lost count. I stopped counting after 3.
Nice.
Like, this doesn't actually matter.
Yeah. But, psychedelics, I don't know, I think they can be really good. Like, I think the thing is
well,
that
you can also draw inspiration from it.
Yeah,
you
expand your mind when you take psychedelics. Like, you don't, the first time I ever took shrooms, I was by myself, and I was sitting in my room, and then they kicked in, and I just started to feel, obviously really strange. And I went outside, and I was like looking around at the lights, and my vision wasn't distorted. Usually, it gets distorted. But the first time I ever took them, I didn't take a very high dose or whatever, so it wasn't very distorted.
No.
But I was just looking at the street lights, and I started thinking in terms of, I'm an environmentalist type dude, so I started thinking, like, why do we have to have those street lights? Why are those there,
Well, it's a safety measure.
Bullshit, man. People, you know what? Headlights are a safety measure.
Okay, well,
No, we lived in the beautiful land of Florida, and they turned, Florida, Orlando, where I live, into a fucking city with a concrete jungle, a bunch of rich snobs. And I started really thinking
about other things are unneeded. That's true.
Yeah. But I started thinking about all this, and while I was looking at the streetlights, and then I turned and I looked at the tree across the street from me, which was my neighbor's tree, and then I said to myself, it was sitting under one of those big orange street lamps, and I was like, why is that tree sitting under that street lamp like that? Why does it have to be subjected to that? Why can't that tree just live in peace? Why does it? Trees are supposed to be in the darkness, that's the natural state of a tree. And then I was like, that tree technically is on my neighbor's property, so it's my neighbor's tree, but really that tree is a life of its own. So I went over there.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, I decided, you know what, you can't really get to know something unless you live with that something. Yeah, so I decided to have sex with the tree. No, I went over there.
It's a bit further than hugging trees, but it's okay.
Yeah, hey, I'm an ultimate hippie. I went over there, and by the way, I'm not a hippie. I don't think anybody should conform to that title. Hippies were only in the truest form of hippies. The purest form was in the 60s, okay? If you say you're a hippie now, it's bullshit. If you're truly a hippie, get out there and protest. Protest the war, go to Occupy Wall Street, whatever.
Never be sober, ever.
Huh?
From like drugs?
It's a mind state. You don't have to smoke weed. That pisses me off too, when people smoke weed and they're like, oh, I'm a hippie. But, they wear bandanas and shit, but then, they go and they, fight and shit.
Well, I think,
we'll get back to that, but you're right. Off the topic of hippies. But, I go over to my neighbor's front yard, right? It's probably 12 midnight or so, maybe later. And I'm kind of tripping out at this point. I go over there, and it was not the nicest tree in the world, but I decided to climb it because, like I said, you have to get to know this tree. I'm looking at it as my neighbor's tree, but really it's its own thing, and I want to get to know it. So I go over there, I start climbing it, I climb up it, and then I'm like inspecting it, looking at all the little pieces of tree bark and looking for little bugs because it has a life of its own and a whole community and world that's living in there.
Yeah.
And then I started climbing on one of the branches like this. And then I look over like this, and I see my neighbor across the street lighting up a cigarette. And I was like, oh fuck, I should probably get down, I'm gonna get arrested. But yeah, so I mean that's kind of the thinking that you take on when you're on shrooms or acid, you know, you just start thinking about things.
Really, it's just for people who want something beyond regular life.
Right. I mean, it's definitely for great thinkers. It does inspire you a lot. It really does. It's great. I wrote like 3 poems that night. Were they good? Hell yeah, they were good, man.
What about magical colors that you can see? I don't even know.
No, I don't know. I probably wrote them in, you know, more detail or something. Actually, they probably stopped down. I was kind of out of it. But yeah, but shrooms can also be bad. If you have a bad trip, if you're around people.
Well, you have to be in the
Right
state of mind.
Yeah.
If you're feeling paranoid or anything, I have read it would just like heighten that and.
Yeah, it really does. And but actually, I was listening to a podcast, a Joe Rogan podcast, and one of them was saying that people don't like to take it because it makes them paranoid. But what it does, and he said this, so I'm not trying to take his quote or whatever. So I'm gonna give him props, but. What it does is, if you are paranoid deep down, or if you have these inner feelings, that's what it brings out. So you have to try and think positively, I think, when you're...
So technically, weed and other drugs don't make you paranoid, it just heightens
They can, yeah. I mean, they
well,
can.
or you could just be paranoid because you're doing an illegal activity.
Right.
So it's not like it directly causes you to feel that emotion.
Yeah. I mean, would you like to take psychedelics someday? I think psychedelics...
Yes, I would, because it's an interesting topic, and I want to experience that.
Yeah.
Just like,
it's pretty crazy.
I've never had like hallucinations. It's just something interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't hallucinate per se when I was on them, but like I said, it just kind of broadened my thinking. But like the second time I did them, I was over at my friend Max's house, and we were like in the middle of the woods, and we went shroom picking. First off, that's fucking scary.
Shroom picking?
Yeah, you're in the middle of the woods. You have to go out to a field with a bunch of cows. You have to pick up the shrooms out of the shit. I mean, they grow on top of the shit, so it's not like they're in the shit, but you pick them off the shit.
That's true, they grow.
Yeah, oh, they do. Oh, yeah. So you have to pick the right ones. They have to be like, I think,
is
brown or
something. Is it out of cow shit?
Mainly, yeah.
Now you know,
I didn't find any that weren't in cow shit. Now you know.
Cows.
But yeah, so we go to this field of cows, and it's on someone's property. You could get caught and go to prison because it's fucking Texas. I was in Texas.
Late at night.
Yeah, it was like 12. No, we just went out there. No, I was freaking out though. My friends had done it before, but like there was a bull in the field that was like, like freaking out. And then like a car drove by and we got down. I was freaking out. But yeah, so I ate this big ass, like that big mushroom, and straight up ate it. Drank some shroom tea, which is disgusting, by the way.
Shroom tea.
Yeah, shroom tea. You boil the shrooms in tea. But yeah, so drank the shroom tea. Then I was sitting there with my friend Max, and it started to kick in, and he was playing with his cat who looked like the Cheshire Cat, and his eyes were like cockeyed, and his name was like Toopy. Yeah, he had 1 or 3 legs, and Max was playing with him, and he was like, Max is got kind of a big head and a long nose, and he was playing with his cat and like squeezing it like this with this big smile on his face, and Toopy was just like. His eyes were going back in his head, and he looked like the Cheshire Cat. And I was just looking at him like this, and Max was like this with this crazy, wicked smile on his face, and it looked like his face was just like sinking down. But yeah, so that kind of happens when you're on shrooms, to me anyways. But then in terms of thinking, the way you think, this chick comes in, and I didn't even know she was there. I didn't even notice her at first. But they were like, "Hey, Maitland's here," and I was like, "What's a Maitland?" And she like came in, and I was like, "Where did you come from? Are you a manifestation of my being?"